Hey, it's Randy here. Your time is valuable, so let's get right into it. This video is about the many different things I've done over the past at least 3 winters to improve my upper respiratory health. This winter has been my best in decades, and so I've tried to think of at least most of the things I've done to get here. I used to suffer every winter with bronchitis, sinusitis, congestion, whatever you want to call it, absolute misery, and it messes with your sleep pattern. It can kind of start a downward spiral that can go many weeks. So number one, the first thing on my list is I've taken the majority of my cold weather winter running indoors, which allows me to run barefoot, another good thing. For the past 5 winters, I've been training for a relatively early in the year 100-mile foot race and taking my training indoors to a college arena using the indoor track and the concourse around the arena as well as the arena steps has been a big help in getting lots of miles in without excessive amounts of exposure to the cold. Number 2, I'm into a 9th year of consuming only plant-based foods. Ideally, I would be consuming only organics and all whole foods. I'm not quite there, but as part of this plan to improve respiratory health, I've cut way back on processed oils. I believe that most people, if they would simply go to an all plant-based diet with a reasonable amount of whole foods included, they would see a great improvement in their overall health as well as their respiratory health. The very first thing I would suggest eliminating is all dairy products. Of course, that means cheese. The lactose is particularly hard on respiratory systems. The casein is addictive. Dairy is effectively liquid meat full of saturated fats. It causes all sorts of health problems. Same with eggs, as well as, of course, any meat. The effects are systemic, so you can improve your arterial health by giving up all animal-based foods, which will have an impact on your respiratory system. Some of the very tiniest blood vessels, capillaries in the body, are in the ears and in the lungs. So keeping those blood vessels as healthy as possible, free of saturated fat and blockages, obviously is going to be good for your respiratory health. It's also, for me, much easier to stay at a healthy BMI, keep my body fat percentage where I want it to be if I stay on a lower fat, all plant-based diet. Simply put, our bodies are designed to have the best body chemistry and gut health if we consume plant-based foods. Number 3, I had already alluded to, was cutting back or eliminating all processed plant-based oils from your diet. I minimize them, not eliminate them 100%, and that seems to be what's gotten me into better respiratory health each year the past 3 winters. So not only will cutting way back on processed oils quickly improve your respiratory function, but eliminating those foods also seems to help lessen the cravings for sweet, fatty, salty foods. If you happen to have the problem of being too lean versus me struggling to keep my weight down where I want it to be, consider eating extra whole nuts and a lot of avocado. Number 4, coconut oil. Just because I'm no longer cooking with it doesn't mean I don't use it. Coconut oil is a natural antibacterial, so I've been using it on my skin to treat bug bites or whatever, and now I used a small amount at least once a day, typically right before bedtime. I dab a little bit into my nostrils, put that in my nose, and just leave it in there and take a deep breath. It's soothing. It keeps the skin inside your nose from drying out. I believe it prevents nosebleeds. Since trying this this winter, I've noticed I get less congested at night if I use this first. Number 5, during the low sunlight winter months, I do some supplementation. The main one that I use is a plant-sourced calcium. It includes magnesium as well as vitamin D3 and more. And a no-brainer, really year-round for everyone, is some B12. There are numerous herbal teas that are good for sinuses, throat, respiratory system, immune system improvement. Pick out whatever looks interesting and sip on those as much as you can throughout the day. And steamy hot, inhaling the moisture from the steamy hot tea also gives a little bit of relief. So number 6 was herbal teas, and I believe licorice is also a good choice of teas. Number 7, apple cider vinegar. To me it tastes horrible. I use it in small doses, generally in the hot tea. A teaspoon, tablespoon a day seems to be plenty. People claim this heals all sorts of things, allegedly good for asthma, upper respiratory, sinusitis, etc. If apple cider vinegar is new to you, be very, very cautious and only use it in small amounts, diluted. Number 8, rebounding is simply bouncing up and down on a trampoline. So this is why I've got this mini trampoline, and I try to use it at least 3 to 5 minutes every morning. It's the best way to ramp up the lymphatic system, which is a key part of our immune system. For several years I've had an issue with some tinnitus in the left ear, and oddly enough, when I'm jumping up and down on the trampoline, I've noticed some popping in that left ear, which has started to go away, meaning it's improved. That congestion in the ears, especially the left ear, is lessened by using the trampoline. And another odd thing I've noticed is that if my arms and hands are kind of above shoulder height, there's more of a release. That simple act of bouncing up and down tends to help loosen things up in the sinuses. Number 9, I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to try to keep dust and such out of your nose. I use this little thing, I don't even know where you buy them. A friend got it online and gave it to me. It's a little plastic piece that goes in the nose, and inside are little washable filters that'll trap dust. So goes in there like this. If I am grooming the dog, cleaning a dusty room, cleaning out the buck stove of the ashes, or if I am cutting the grass when the ground is really dry and there's a lot of dust kicking up, I try to keep that stuff out of the sinus area. Number 10, wear a hat. Pretty simple. I sleep in a hat virtually every night during the winter. I almost always have one when I'm outside. When I'm running, I'll tend to wear a thin buff over my head to try to keep, and I'll pull it down to keep the cold wind out of my ears. But keep your head warm. Pretty simple, and it feels it's comforting to have a hat on at night. It helps. It's a sleep aid. And my wife, she digs this hat. Number 11 is a simple thing you can do when you're watching TV or possibly when you're driving. A chiropractor recommended this. I'll try to find the link and put it in my video description. But it's a sinus lymph draining strategy. I'm just gonna go over some of the basics. The video is probably 10-15 minutes. But basically what he's saying is that you massage these muscles along the neck to open up the lymphatic system down at the base of the neck. So it's tap, 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 and rubbing of the areas to release the lymph from the lymphatic system. So you can kind of start by tapping on the forehead and pushing down over towards the jaws, massaging the jaw muscles, and then draining that down. Basically, you massage all of the facial areas, around the head, around the ears, and even around the back of the head towards the jaw area. Who am I to say how legit it is? It seems to bring a little bit of relief if I'm feeling congested, and I see absolutely no downside to it. Number 12, consume hot, fresh vegan soup, obviously with veg broth. Mix in there pretty much whatever you want, but include leeks, green onions, plenty of garlic, and parsley. 13, use hot spices. And I'm not talking about necessarily in your food. Oftentimes right before I go to bed, I'll inhale from a hot spicy seasoning. It can be a cayenne pepper, a paprika. Probably the most effective one I've found is this Cajun blend. Simply open the lid and very, very lightly inhale. So just sort of take a smell of this, and say I wake up at 3 a.m. feeling just a little congested and not sleeping right. Oftentimes I'll get up and do this, and pretty quickly I'll be back in bed breathing easy. 14. Anyone watching this video has probably struggled with getting a good night's sleep. So some things to help are, obviously there are many sleep aid blend teas. Sometimes I'll mix 2, 3, 4 together. Tryptophan is known to help people sleep, but people like me only consuming plants are not eating turkey for tryptophan. Rather, we are enjoying cashews or dried tart cherries or tart cherry juice. Those are high in tryptophan. And for melatonin, simply consume delicious pistachios. Number 15. Get into some yoga and meditation. Traditional yoga, of course, meditation is already a huge part of that. But meditation helps us become much more aware of our breath, how we're breathing, whether it's through the nose or the mouth, how we're exhaling, becoming more aware of all body sensing. Yoga can help with that. Emphasize yoga that will help loosen up the jaws and the neck, shoulders. All of the muscle areas closer to the sinuses probably are going to need some relief if you're suffering. Another great one to try is called bumblebee breath. It's a yoga breathing technique, I believe, and it's as simple as pushing your ears shut, closing your mouth, and breathing out long and deep through the nose. When you do that, you cause a unique vibration, and it kind of rattles the whole skull and jaw area. That can only help loosen up sinuses if they're congested. Okay, number 16. This one's a little odd. Who am I to judge whether or not it works or not? But it simply involves using copper, specifically using copper in the inside the nose and the lower part of the nostrils. This is a piece of 1/4-inch copper tubing that's been cut and sanded, and simply putting that into the nose just a little bit into the base and sort of rolling that around, inhaling through it. That exposure of that area to the copper allegedly has an antibacterial effect. It seems to help people with asthma and congestion problems. Also, many people just simply rub the copper on their hands during cold and flu season to reduce their risk of cold. Applying this in the nostrils right before right as you feel like you might be getting a cold, allegedly helps eliminate colds. So maybe copper can help prevent a cold. I don't know. I've been using some 1981 and older US copper pennies. just to kind of rub them on my fingers. I throw some in my teapot. And if I don't have the other piece of copper, you can just sort of rub these on the lower part of your nose a little bit. 17, if you happen to be a blood donor, be extra cautious during asthma season or during winter, cold and flu season. I've had to back off a little bit on the volume of donating platelets and plasma. If you're going to do it, just be sure that you're on top of your rest and your nutrition. Number 18, freshly juiced celery. I take a whole bunch of celery, run that through the juicer, and every morning on an empty stomach for the last week or two, I'm drinking half a mason jar to a full mason jar, 20 ounces or so or more of celery juice. On top of everything else I'm doing, this seems to be helping me breathe easier at night. It just seems like I've got a little bit more relief. The celery juice is a possible way to help treat tinnitus. It's supposed to be good for the respiratory system. It's also part of a liver detox and kidney detox program. Celery is pretty cheap, so it's an affordable way to boost your health in general. 19. As I've made progress, I've been doing a little bit more outdoor running, adding in the last couple years a pretty significant number of winter 50K ultra marathons, and doing really well with them. Not fast, I'm finishing them, but the main thing is I'm doing them without catching a cold or getting sinusitis. Of course, it's always good to get as much natural sunlight on your body as possible. That would be number 20. Get natural sunlight. Get out, walk the dog, take a hike, whatever you need to do. Try to hit the highest sun level of the day and just get outside for a bit. But if the sun's not out, bear in mind that rain brings negative ions into the air, which is good for your energy level, which in theory would be good for boosting your immune system. So I love to get out and run during fresh snowfall. It seems to be energizing, and it could be the negative ions.